There are also these other people that really don't know what's happening. They probably just woke up and they're like, everyone is talking about Russia, everyone is talking about Ukraine, what's happening? Just like Pastor Onyebuchi said on Facebook. He made a post and then he said something that really cracked me up. He was like, some people are actually praying for Ukraine, thinking that Ukraine is a Christian who is being persecuted in Sudan. What? you know Pastor Onyebuchi is an incredible teacher and he's also a very hilarious man. I think you should check him out on Facebook. Just type Onyebuchi Carlo. That's his Facebook name, is Pastor Onyebuchi, and you'll quite get value when you follow him. All right. Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Welcome to Udella Talks, and on today's video we'll be talking about the already popular Russian-Ukraine crisis. Everyone is already probably aware of that. It's all over the news, it's all over the internet, it's everywhere. And if there is anyone who is qualified to talk about such issues, I should be sitting on that table. And that's because who am I? I am Udoka Agwilkoro. If you haven't already met me, I am an international relations devotee, a certified one at that. Alright guys, don't mind me. The reason I wanted us to put up this video together was because I've seen a lot of people talk about why is Russia doing what Russia is doing today. People are dying, there is no need for war, blah 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 blah, and all of these things. Yeah, those are all valid reasons, but I'll also like you to know the reason why Russia is doing what Russia is doing today, why what is happening today is happening today, and when we are doing our criticisms, we'll do it at least constructively, not based on sentiments, emotions, even morality. Because let me tell you, in international politics, all these things, morality, sentiment, emotions, they don't count. But national interest does count, and that is why we'll be looking at this issue from the aspect of national interest and the aspect of power play. So I hope that you enjoyed the video as much as I do, and I hope that it answers some of your questions. And if you have any contributions, please, the comment section is there for you to say. So what is national interest? National interest are those interests, or is the interest that a nation seeks to protect or secure in relations with other states. All right, national interest is like one of the basic concepts in international politics. It is what drives the actions of states. It is also what determines even the inaction of states in the international arena. So it is very important. It is. Now, having said that, what is the interest of Russia in Ukraine? NATO wahala. At least that's the way it is on paper, right? NATO. The reason Russia is invading or has invaded Ukraine is because of its seeming plan to join NATO. Now, why? Because it considers Ukraine joining NATO as, national security threat for them, for Russia. For Russia. In fact, President Putin, in his words, he said, if Ukraine joins NATO, it increases Russia's national security threat dramatically. Emphasis on the word dramatically. It increases Russia's national security threat dramatically. And if you can agree with me, there is not a single nation on earth who takes matters of national security very lightly. Not one nation. A very typical example is during the Venezuela-Cuba crisis, when Russia intended to establish military bases in some of those places that had borders with the United States, okay? And the United States are like, no, that ain't gonna happen. We're not just gonna sit down here and watch Russia come establish military bases in our borders. Why? National security reasons. It didn't exactly look good for the United States. And so they fought it. The four Russians were like, no, we can't have this. It became a tussle until Russia backed out. Russia backed out and withdrew her troops from the same United States. Now, it's, behind the scene and fueling Ukraine into joining NATO. So that by so doing, they will be able to checkmate Russia. Now, if Ukraine joins NATO, it gives NATO the access to establish military bases in or next to Russian borders. Do you understand? And this NATO we're talking about, it's not just like one country military base. We're talking about a combination of the military of the United States. We're talking about Germany. We're talking about even France. And you know how over time the relationship between Russia and some of these countries have been. It is not exactly a sweetheart kind of relationship. So you don't expect that Russia will fold her hands and watch those people or watch NATO establish military bases very close to her borders. It will definitely affect her military. And that is why they termed it a national security threat. So, whatever Russia is doing today is because it is trying to protect its national security. Like I said, that's why national interest is very powerful. It's something that nations can go at any length, right, just to achieve it. All right. What is Ukraine's interest in NATO? I mean, why does Ukraine have to join NATO anyway? Some of the reasons, of course, is not comprehensive. For the sake of this video, we can talk about this in a few minutes video, of course. So I'm just trying to see what I can do with our time and space that we have. So one of the reasons why Ukraine, or one of the Ukraine's interest in joining NATO, is for military backing, more or less an organization that is designed to fight war. And one of the major principles of NATO is, collective defense. That is, an attack on one member country is an attack on all member country. All right, do you understand? So if Ukraine joins NATO, it will kind of serve as deterrence to Russia and Russian aggression. Somehow it will keep the Russians off the back of Ukraine. All right, and secondly, it will kind of facilitate um, Ukraine's long-term policy goal of joining the European Union. All right, it'll be much more easy for her to be able to access the European Union as a member. All right, this will of course further keep Russian influence off Ukraine, and probably thirdly, to maintain a closer relationship with the US. And you know how the relationship of Russia and the US is. I think that will put Ukraine on a very difficult spot, because more like the friend of my enemy is my enemy, right? When you look at the interest, you see that they are both very parallel. They can never meet, and that is why it looks like this conflict is literally unavoidable. Now we're going to examine this crisis in the lens of power tussle. Remember, I told you we're going to be looking at it from two perspectives, from the national interest perspective and the power tussle perspective. Okay, affect the nation's formulation of foreign policy. Do you understand? Let's take, for instance, the Dutch the Dutch War of Independence, the 80 years war against Spain that brought about the independence of the Netherlands and all of that. If you see the way the Dutch people are so proud of themselves, you see the way they carry themselves, they're even like, oh my God, it took 80 bloody years. It took 80 bloody years, and somehow it has a way of affecting the way they relate with their neighboring country. Can just come and say, hey, you guys are gonna do this, or you're gonna do this, or you must do it this way. Hello, like, excuse me, who are you? Because they gained this independence. They weren't given the independence. It was intentional. They worked for it. They put their blood in it. Blood flew it. But you cannot compare that with, Ukraine. Ukraine that I think it probably just, yeah, during the fall of the Soviet Union, and then the Ukraine and some other thing broke away from the former Soviet Union to become an independent state. And of course, they allegedly committed to a set of conditions that had to be met for them to. One of such was giving up the nuclear arms, and then secondly, never ever entertaining the thought of joining NATO, given that them being a part of NATO would definitely jeopardize the national security of Russians. Now, all of a sudden, Ukraine wants to join NATO. And Russia is like saying, no, you get on and breaching the agreement. Ukraine ought to make their own decisions by themselves, with no form of interference from anywhere or from anybody, because it's a sovereign nation. It's a sovereign nation, right? So, but because their history with the Soviet Union, Ukraine, Russia, on the surface, that's what it looks like. It looks like it's NATO and the Russia problem, right? But on a deeper level, this is more like the communist and the capitalist, Western capitalist wahala. More like Russia versus the US. That's Russia and her allies versus the US and her allies. That's what it looks like on a deeper level. And the problem here is that it appears Ukraine as a puppet. That is what it looks like. They have done it before. They can do it again if it means projecting their national interest. Do you understand? My brother would always say that the United States is a bully. And that it is high time someone stood up to them. And as much as I don't completely agree with that, however, I like what China is doing right now. Like, if you study the relationship between China and the US, it's something very interesting to watch. Some of these nations rising up, and then trying to, the power tussle is there. The US superpower and upcoming superpowers, and I kind of like it because it has a way of creating a balance of power in the international system. So these people don't just wake up in the morning and they start abusing power. There's always someone somewhere to checkmate them. Do you understand? And talking about the US using the
If we
Ukraine
go
as
back
puppet,
to
now
history,
this is what you realize that during the Cold War era, particularly during the Soviet Afghan invasion, now the United States used what they called the policy of containment, right? Now, Kissinger, when he was explaining exactly what this was, there is something I picked from him. He said they didn't want to face the Soviet Union at the time head on, like physically. Do you understand? So they came up with a policy that would, from behind the scene, create an environment that would push the Soviet Union to act, to invade Afghan. And so doing, they would be able to, achieve what they wanted, the spread of communism in that era. All right. Now, what did they do? United States started, supplying arms and financial aids to the Mujahideens. Yeah, is that what they call them? The Mujahideens, yeah. The Afghan Mujahideens and all of that, And they were giving them aids, they were giving them money. They were just like firing them up the same way they're just, firing Ukraine right now from behind the scene. All right. And when the Soviet Union noticed this, all these activities from the US, if we let these people, they are probably going to align with them and all of that. And also, we need to act. And before you know it, the Soviet Union came up then and invaded Afghan. Exactly what the US wanted. They appealed Soviet Union and achieved whatever it is they wanted to achieve. Very tricky. Very, very tricky. Very, very tricky set of people. So not minding the lives that would be lost in that war, not minding, because like I said, national interest is paramount. It doesn't matter if people have to die. Sometimes it doesn't matter. A lot of people feel like it's just like the bad name that is given to a dog to hang it. Yeah. And that Russia has not really recognized the independence of Ukraine. It's not really recognized Ukraine as an independent nation. For Russia, Ukraine still is just a part of their influence, where they can extend their influence however they want. And of course, this has been shown in some events in the past. For example, the annexation of the what is it called, Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula. The dollars and all of that. Yeah. And even President, what's his name again, Joseph Stalin, when he was in power, his Russification policy and all of that. From Russia's activities over the years, in relation to Ukraine, you would have already noticed that there just seems to be this unending interference in Ukraine's businesses, and that's because Russia has not really recognized Ukraine as beyond just the NATO wahala, to involve probably the Russia and then the US, or the communist and the Western capitalist bloc. Just very mildly, it is not pronounced. It's like on the surface, it is Ukraine and Russia. But if this is beyond just the Ukraine and the Russia to involve the US and Russia, the US and her allies, and then the Russia. Do you understand? To get to Russia, US is using Ukraine as what? As puppets. And Ukraine is not seeing the handwriting on the wall. But whatever be the case, whether it is a fight of national interest or it is Russia trying to impose its supremacy on Ukraine, or it is a fight between the communist or the Western capitalist bloc, whatever it is, whatever angle you look at it, my point is that the world does not need another war, especially not in the magnitude of a world war. Yesterday morning, when I was watching BBC News, and then I saw these Russians come out in their numbers to protest, and apparently Russians aren't exactly happy with the invasion going on, and on their placards were written some really touching and emotional words. One wrote, "I am Russian, but I stand with Ukraine." The other wrote, "I am so ashamed to be Russian at this time, and peace to Ukraine. Protect the Ukrainian sky." A lot of very emotional words. You can see of even the Russian people are vehemently against this invasion. One wrote, "Ukraine is a sovereign nation. Someone get Putin off Ukraine." Another even wrote, "Somebody choke Putin." I'm like, choke? Oh, come on. Anyways, it just goes to state, the very level of displeasure that the Russians are showing towards this invasion. And the country is the people and the people are the country, right? So perhaps it's just about time President Putin just listens to his people and probably put an end to this thing before it escalates, because last everybody will collect. You go reach everybody. And I'm just wondering what becomes of my dear country if it gets to that point. But we hope it doesn't get to that point and end to all of this, so that it doesn't escalate to a third world war, because that is the last thing the world needs right now. And thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments, you have any disagreements, you have inputs, please let me know in the comment section. I like to read from you. Let me know your opinion. Let me know what you think. And if you learned something, please also let me know. And if it is not too much to ask, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. All right. And of course, you know, there is more to talk about in this issue. It is vast, it is large. It is not something that 10-15 minutes video can do justice to, in a series on this subject matter. And even as we are monitoring the situation in the world right now, so we'll be giving feedback on what we think is relevant for the people out there to know. So you can always subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on all of those juicy videos. Thank you so much for watching. It's your girl Udoka Abukuru, aka Udella Talks, and I hope to see you again on my next video. Bye for now.